272 NFL regular season games, 13 playoff games, and we're here. The NFL season is in the books. Iain, MacMillan, and Sterling Holmes here, back from New Orleans. We're here to recap both Super Bowl week and the game itself. The Philadelphia Eagles have taken down the evil empire, beating the Kansas City Chiefs in a stunning result, I think would be fair to say, 40-22. And the final score doesn't necessarily show how much of a lopsided game it was. Chiefs only had 6 points up until the last 2 minutes of the game. But even with a couple of garbage time scores, still a blowout in favor of the Philadelphia Eagles to prevent the Chiefs from being the first team to pull off a Super Bowl three-peat. I'll let you start off, Sterling, as the Chiefs fan in the room. Just break down your thoughts on the game and where your head's at.
That was the fabled 3 scoops of ass performance by the Kansas City Chiefs. My goodness, that sucked. That was brutal. Again, even today, I have a larger and better perspective. Even after the game, I'm more calm than most. You know this about me. We're going to look back and we'll say, okay, the Chiefs won 2 Super Bowls. They made it to their third in a row. This was a historic stretch by the Kansas City Chiefs. It was just such a frustrating game to watch. It was brutal. It was bad. There was nothing to cheer for. No even morsel of hope. There just wasn't. Patrick Mahomes had his worst game of his career. The offensive line did no favors. Wide receivers like DeAndre Hopkins, a surefire Hall of Famer, decided, hey, you know what would be cool? What if I just drop this ball? What if I have a chance to score a 60-yard touchdown and instead, what if I just don't catch it? The defense overall, I thought actually played really good. Spagnuolo had a good game plan, but that will not be remembered in the history books because you will see the 40, even though 14 were spotted to the Eagles by Patrick Mahomes and that offensive line.
Yeah, listen, during the game, after the game, I got a lot of people tweeting at me saying, Iain, you were right. You rightfully called the Chiefs frauds. Hold on. Allow me to actually defend the Chiefs, because there's a couple of reasons why I'm not coming on here, Sterling, to have a victory lap and to claim the Chiefs were frauds, and I was right the whole time. Number one, I can't do it because I got off the take. I waved the white flag after the Texans game. I said they were going to lose in the first round of the playoffs. They didn't. I had to get off the take. I then bet on them both in the AFC Championship and in the Super Bowl. But more so, I don't think this loss by the Chiefs proves that they were frauds. And I actually still don't think that they were frauds whatsoever. I think the Chiefs finally had an F game, which part of the Chiefs lore the past few seasons was that they can't have an F game, especially in the playoffs. It doesn't happen in playoffs and big moments and big games and Super Bowls. Ever since the Chiefs-Buccaneers game, people were like, okay, that was their one big game. They learned from their mistakes. They're never going to have a bad game in a big spot ever again. The Super Bowl proved that, yes, even the Kansas City Chiefs, who have, found ways to win tight games in the bigger the game, the bigger the moment, the more clutch they have been, even they are capable of putting up a stinker, which they finally did against this Eagles team. And not only was it a stinker by the Chiefs, it was an A-plus performance by the Eagles. So I'm actually, even though I know people are victory lapping or telling me to victory lap, I got to be on. I can't, because I still think the Chiefs are a much better team than their stats showed. I don't think they're frauds. I think they just had a bad game at the worst possible moment, which was something we didn't think was possible for this Chiefs team, but it turns out it is.
Yeah, again, when you beat the Bills and the Texans, and Patrick came off one of his best games of his career against the Bills. This Chiefs team looked incredible against Buffalo. The 2 weeks to prepare, and then the game plan was so lackluster, so discombobulated. One run on the first 13 plays, and on that rush by Kareem Hunt, was it Hunt or Pacheco on the first rush? He ran into Kelsey. There was miscommunication. Kelsey, by the way, with an early drop, just looked out of it. It was just such a frustrating game to watch, and all credit to the Eagles. The Eagles played outstanding. They looked good. I talked about it when we were down there on Radio Row. The Eagles looked locked in, right? Even during opening night, I'm like, the Eagles, they're like not talking. They don't want to be here on media night. They just want to only do football. The Chiefs, we're sitting there jovial, joking around, having fun. They've been there before. They've earned that right. I don't think that necessarily was indicative. Like, I don't know how much you want to take away from that. But to me, I do think the Eagles were a team that they knew what was at stake. They could not lose that game. They could not lose that game. The Eagles, again, all the credit. That defensive line, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, ridiculous. Zach Bond, again, going from defensive line to a coverage linebacker is just insane. Cooper DeJean, you know my thoughts on him. Him, Quinyon Mitchell, Darius Slay, that defense of the Eagles and Vic Fangio, they didn't do anything crazy. They rushed for the entire game. They weren't trying to confuse them. They just said, we're going to rush for, beat us. The Chiefs couldn't. The Chiefs could not adjust. And that was the frustrating part. The lack of adjustments from what is one of the best head coaches, maybe the best offensive mind in NFL history, never adjusted once.
Matthew in the chat says, I think it was very apparent the Chiefs had a left guard playing at the left tackle position. And Sportscaster89 says, Chiefs are not frauds, just didn't have any answers for the Eagles. Front seven. I do actually want to give credit to the Chiefs defense, which was kind of lost in all this. Actually had a pretty solid, by the way, viewers and listeners can tell that Sterling and I are both not feeling our best this morning. I'm sick. I got sick at the end of the week. Sterling's lost his voice. We're battling through it. I want to give credit to the Chiefs defense. I know it was a blowout, but it was so 24-0 at half. But 14 of those 24 points were off Mahomes interceptions. One was literally a pick six, and the other one was an interception that gave the ball to the Eagles on the 10-yard line, 12-yard line?
I think it was like the 5.
5? Yeah. So, Mahomes' turnovers handed them 14 points. So, really, now maybe, maybe the Eagles would have got more points regardless. But technically, only 10 points from the offense in the first half. You would think the Chiefs would at least be able to be in the game if Mahomes didn't kind of hand them 14 points there. Also, all week, everyone was saying the Chiefs, if they can find a way to slow down Saquon Barkley, they can win this game. They kept Barkley to 57 yards on 25 carries, 2.3 yards per rush, which is crazy. No defense stopped Saquon this year like the Chiefs did. If you told me heading into the week, Saquon had 57 yards, I'd say the Kansas City Chiefs will pull off the three-peat. Not only did they not win, they lost by 18 points in a game that, it felt like they lost by even more than that. So, yeah, go ahead.
The linebackers, Drew Tranquil and Nick Bolton and Leo were flying around, right? Tershawn Wharton was submarining in there and doing a great job. I keep saying Turk Wharton deserves so much credit in this game. Spagnuolo had the right game plan.
Yeah.
I don't blame Spags at all. That was the right game plan. I said Saquon under 100 yards. Saquon, no touchdowns. That's the only reason why I won my money back, was because of those two situations. I knew this was the game plan, and the Chiefs have the guys to do it. The issue was the offense can't be that bad. They were horrific. Yeah. Horrific. The Eagles are 3 of 11, 3 of 12 on third downs. No,
3 of 12 on third downs. Yeah, and only 4.9 yards per play. Like, it wasn't an offensive explosion for the Eagles.
The Chiefs ended up with more yards per play only because of Xavier Worthy's last.
Yeah,
that's why now you know my pushback sometimes of yards per play.
For sure.
Yeah, so, but yeah, man, the Chiefs defense just got boned in this game. I feel for those guys. I really do. There were a couple situations where A.J. Brown just got the better of Trent McDuffie. It was a little interesting at times to see the Chiefs only rush 4, have 0 pass rush, and somehow A.J. Brown is still one-on-one. That was a little surprising to me at times, like in pretty key situations. I get McDuffie's on him, but it's why I always say put Watson and safety help on him and put McDuffie on Smith. I know we're nitpicking here. I should not be blaming the defense at all for Kansas City because they were not the issue. It just goes back to, again, the offense being absolutely horrific. Joe Tooney had been so good at left tackle. I'm not trying to blame him because it's not his fault. It is a left guard playing tackle, but it was just too much for him. It just was too much. Mike Caliendo was brutal. I thought maybe at halftime they'd go and switch DJ Humphries at left tackle, move Tooney back to guard. Didn't happen. No adjustments. And what's even funnier is if you think about it, the Chiefs actually had the best start possible to this game. They won the coin toss. They got a 3-and-out, or did they get a first down? They forced a punt. Their first drive, they do pick up a first down, 11 yards to Juju Smith-Schuster. If you tell me that's the start to the game, that you win the toss, you have the Eagles punt on their first possession, you pick up a first down in your first play, things are looking pretty darn good.
Yep.
All went downhill from there, and downhill quick.
Yeah. If I were to push back a little bit, I don't think this would be an episode of Stacking the Box without me pushing back on Chiefs fans a little bit. I did see a lot of Chiefs fans on social media after the game talking about how there needs to be some significant changes in the offseason, and this wasn't the team, and we had these holes. The same Chiefs fans who like a week ago were like, this is the greatest team, greatest franchise, greatest squad to ever exist, and they're going to pull this off, this historic game, and nobody can beat them. One game shouldn't make that big of a difference. I know it's the game, but you can't go from this is the perfect team to now we got a ton of holes and like we have all these issues and we got to rebuild.
Well, no, a perfect team was a stretch.
You're right. I was being a little bit hyperbolic when I said that.
You have a left guard playing left tackle. You're on your 4th left tackle of the season. That's not perfect. But I do think this team was really good. This game, in my opinion, is not indicative of this entire roster. But yeah, there are going to be some people who want overarching changes, and there will be some big changes. Brett Veach does that. After the Buccaneers lost, what happened? Overarching changes. Massive changes. There'll be changes to the offensive line. Juwan Taylor's probably going to be here another year because of the contract, but Trey Smith probably won't be here. Creed Humphrey will be. He's already re-signed. Left guard is completely up in the air. Do they extend Joe Thuney? Do they move on? I mean, there are a lot of options here. The left tackle's wide open. Nick Bolton, is he coming back? Do you extend McDuffie and Karlaftis already? There are a lot of situations already for Kansas City that there are going to be some changes, but the people who are acting like this team was just, all of a sudden this one game changes their entire thought process. I think they're completely overreacting. Were the Eagles the better overall top to bottom, maybe better constructed roster? Yeah, probably. But I don't want one game to completely overshadow what was a phenomenal season from Kansas City, where their depth really was the focal point of KC, right? How many times was I saying depth, 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 right? They were really good this year. The Eagles just played a better game, a perfect game nearly, outside of an early interception from Hurts, and the Chiefs just pooped the bed. I don't want to just act like the Chiefs all of a sudden need to have these massive changes. There are things that showed. The O-line and the lack of any sort of run game. But even if the Chiefs got a great running back, would Andy Reid do it?
Why didn't the Chiefs run the ball?
It's Andy. That's what I love Andy. I love Andy. But you just have to live with it. He does not run the football. He hates it.
But even that was like a low running performance by the Chiefs.
He hates it.
Like the score was still well within. Like it was like a 7-point game, and he was just like throwing all 3 plays.
He does this, man. It's been the one knock at least since he's been in Kansas City. It hasn't been time management. Like when he was with the Eagles, it was time management, right? In Kansas City, it's all been he will abandon the run game, and especially against the Eagles in this one, they're just teeing off on Patrick. Patrick is befuddled. He was Sam Darnold seeing ghosts back there. Help him out. Run the ball at least a couple times. And then when he would decide to run on those back-to-back runs, you're like, well, this is bleeping obvious, Andy. Like, it's just befuddling at times for such a, again, maybe the best offensive mind in NFL history. At times, he gets perplexed about what to do when it comes to running the football.
Well, let me maybe save Andy a little bit and maybe throw a different name under the bus. How much of this is Matt Nagy's fault? I saw some fans throwing out Matt Nagy's name.
Yeah, well,
should Andy be taking all the blame?
Yeah, I mean, Andy's the play caller.
Yeah,
I mean, we've known this for years. I mean, this is him. It's the whole situation back with Bieniemy. When things went wrong, it was Bieniemy's fault. When things were good, it's Andy's. When things go wrong, it's Matt Nagy. When things are good, it's Andy. I even saw people saying, bring back Bieniemy. Okay, sure. The grand scheme of things, Andy is the guy. And it's just funny how you don't blame Andy, you blame the OC. When things are good, you don't give credit to the OC, you give credit to Andy.
At the end of the day, and we heard the same sentiment from almost every single person that we interviewed on Radio Row and getting their thoughts on the game, anyone who is not an Eagles fan or not a Chiefs fan, that the Eagles were the better skill team, the better roster, but you don't want to pick against Mahomes because he's done it time and time again in big spots, and they've won games, which you can make the argument the team they were facing was the better constructed roster. So to see that this outcome shouldn't be surprising, I think it's just surprising because we hadn't seen it since the Buccaneers Chiefs Super Bowl a few years ago. But the better team won. So I do think it does kind of serve as a reminder that like the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes aren't invincible. They can certainly win a lot of big games and big moments against better constructed teams, but they're not invincible.
No, but I push back against it a little bit too. Everyone's acting like it's Mahomes and a bunch of bums. Like that's what was my frustration was. It was like the Eagles are 2 through 53 so much better. I'm like, Trent McDuffie's an all-pro corner. Chris Jones is the best interior defensive lineman in football. Travis Kelce is still one of the best tight ends in football. Yep. Like what are we like? That was my Xavier Worthy has been blossoming. Creed Humphrey's the best center in football. Like I was kind of pushing back a little bit against that. I'm like, why are we acting like the rest of the Chiefs are a bunch of just off the scrap heap? Like they're not. Again, this one game is making people feel like that's the case. It's not the case. I guess that was my frustration overall. Like, is Justin Reed all of a sudden just a bum? Like, is Nick Bolton all of a sudden just this horror? Like, no. Like, I just thought there was a really silly, easy narrative, and I felt like I was the only one trying to give pushback to it. But then again, this game does not help my cause. I just think the Chiefs played like 3 scoops of ass, and the Eagles played great. And now that one game is going to be the lasting narrative from the entire season.
Yeah. Yeah, but I do still think, yes, are the Chiefs, a bunch of bums? Absolutely not. But like if you were just look at these two rosters on paper, you have to admit though, Sterling, the Eagles are overall top to bottom the better team.
Yes, but not by much. Like I really don't think it's anything drastic. I don't. Like, Zach Bond is the best of the linebackers. But then 2 through 4, if you're picking, those are all Chiefs. That's Drew, Nick, and Leo. If you're going defensive line, it's
better than Nolan Smith?
Nolan Smith's an edge rusher. Like, it's different because they run a little different style of defense, right?
It's kind of hard to classify line.
I'm almost going to classify him as an edge rusher, right? So, the Chiefs have the number 1 pass rusher, Chris Jones, and then the Eagles have 2 through 5, and then probably Karlaftis. But, cornerback. Trent McDuffie's probably 1. And then it's Cooper DeJean, and then it's Quinyon Mitchell and Darius Slay, and then Jalen Watson. Safeties. Justin Reed's probably the best safety. And then the Eagles probably have 2, 3, and then the Chiefs. What's actually funny is when you do it this way, the Chiefs actually have the top player at almost each one of these positions, and it's the Eagles that have the 2 through 5. Again, the narrative I just thought was a little overblown. The result, again, is going to push that narrative, and even on the offense. I think the offensive line, everyone kept saying Eagles, Eagles, Eagles. I think the Chiefs' offensive line did not show in this game, was almost on par with the Eagles' O-line because Creed Humphrey is the best center. Trey Smith is going to be the highest paid guard in football after this year. Joe Tooney was doing incredible things, not just at guard, but at tackle. And Jawan Taylor had figured things out. Just in this game, most all of them were brutal. So yeah, again, the Chiefs' wide receivers were really good too. I think the Chiefs had a really good roster. It just the Eagles played an A game and the Chiefs didn't, and so that narrative is going to be the one pushed, and that's the frustration I have because I don't think ridiculous changes need to come to Kansas City. They made it to the bleeping Super Bowl. They just beat the Buffalo Bills and played a ridiculously good game. I don't like these overreactions. Again, I get it. We're in the moment right now, but we're going to look back and realize, okay, that Chiefs team was still pretty damn good.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the 40-22 final score is not because the Eagles were that much better than the Chiefs. It was the Chiefs brought in, I don't even know if what would you actually grade their, well, I guess defensively they played well enough to bring them out of the F range, but like a C- game the Chiefs played, and the Eagles played in A+ game. A+.
The Chiefs defense was like a B+ game.
Right. So as a whole, their
game.
team would be like a C.
The Chiefs offense though was an F.
For sure.
The Chiefs offense was an F. I mean, I'm not kidding. That was the worst performance offensively I have ever seen
in the Mahomes era, and since the Buccaneers.
The only game that comes to mind is like the tie. But even that he played better in. Like even that he played a lot better in that game. That was my frustration. Was I actually thought Patrick played good in that Buccaneers game. Just the rest of the team was brutal. The only other game that really stands out would be second half of the Bengals, but that was only one half. And the Titans regular season game. When they put up like 3 points. There's like one Titans regular season game in 2019 where you're like, what the hell just happened? That's the only other game I could think of. This was a F offensive game.
Can we talk about how the Eagles' only loss as a healthy team was to the Falcons this year? Now, I tweeted that, a little bit of pushback on Twitter. A.J. Brown wasn't in that game.
This Eagles team was so good, man. I mean, they were so good.
Rematch Falcons-Eagles this week. Winner's the actual Super Bowl champion.
Where's that at?
Kirk has to play. Is that
what you're going with?
Kirk has to play.
Kirk Cousins? Yeah, Kirk has to play, right?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Any other thoughts from the game? Then we can just talk about maybe Super Bowl week a little bit, then we can wrap it up since we're both not feeling our best.
Yeah, I'd love to talk Super Bowl week with you instead of this game. Yeah, it is what it is, man. This Chiefs team is still, they're going to be there. Anyone who thinks like the dynasty is over is hilarious.
Yeah, that's
like,
that's crazy.
And all these people, and all the people are like, well, Brady never did this. Do you know what Brady's record was in his first 5 Super Bowls? No way he was 3-2, just like Patrick.
3-2.
No chance, right?
The losses were blowouts, but they was 3-2. Yeah. Wow.
Who cares? Do you get you get brownie points
I think
for losing less?
Actually, yes.
A loss is a loss, my dude. Dude, see, that's always been my frustration and like my pushback is like a loss is a loss, a win is a win. It really doesn't matter. It makes the fans feel better, but in the grand scheme of things, you don't get an extra half win because
Sterling,
you lost by
as a guy who's dealt
margin.
with 28-3 jokes for 8 straight goddamn years, a loss is not a loss and a win's not a win. It's very important how those games turn out. If that was a normal loss, no one would even remember the Falcons were in that Super Bowl. I was around New Orleans. Did you see the 28-3 billboard in New Orleans?
They had a billboard and they had like a poster slapped up on the highway.
The Saints weren't even in the game. It's just the Falcons are the Saints' rival. And so yes, it actually is really important how these games go. A loss is not a loss.
My other frustration is when it comes to people being like, well, that's it. He can no longer be the GOAT. It's over. Dude's 29.
Yeah,
he's 29 years old.
Yeah.
Like,
you're telling me if he doesn't win the next 3 Super Bowls, he can't be like he wouldn't be the
it's
GOAT?
Over. Yeah, like it's so dumb. Like I hate the overreactions, and that's what we get. And I'm not an overreactionary person typically, but like, come on, what are we doing here?
Yeah,
this is the equivalent. This is the equivalent, but like not really, but yes, the Patriots did go to 3 straight Super Bowls. They just won the first one and the third one, so they never had a chance for a three-peat. This is almost their version, the Chiefs' version of the Giants 07, the undefeated season losing. I mean, that's more or less,
and that was Brady's 5th Super Bowl too,
right? So I mean, that's more or less. People just hate having the parallels to Brady because
might have been his 4th.
Because Brady stands won't have it, and the same thing always will happen with LeBron and Jordan. But it's the same thing. People are using this to knock Patrick. I'm sitting here going, so making the Super Bowl and losing is now somehow worse than if they would have lost to the Texans in the divisional round. Like, that's such a dumb argument to me. What? So missing the playoffs now, like Brady did, is now better than Patrick getting blown out in the Super Bowl? Like, what are we doing here? Can we have some nuance? Can we have some critical thinking? Yes, this is bad. It's a mark on Patrick's career. But the fact that this losing in the Super Bowl is a mark on Patrick's career shows you just how damn good and how far he goes every single season.
I do agree with you, Sterling, but unfortunately, yes, losing in the Super Bowl actually is worse than losing earlier. Just hold on. But I agree with you. I'm just saying what the public's narrative is. And this even goes cross sport. The Jordan LeBron debate, people bring up Michael Jordan's NBA Finals record compared to LeBron's NBA Finals record.
It's
People
dumb.
never bring up that Jordan lost like 7 times in the first round. And I think LeBron has lost once. And I think it was like last year was his first time losing in the first round of the NBA playoffs. Nobody ever brings that up, though. People only bring up the record in the NBA Finals.
It's dumb. It's dumb.
I agree. I agree. I agree with you.
And I get it. LeBron doesn't have as many rings as Jordan, and so that is still fine to me. If you want to say record because he doesn't have as many rings, 100%. I will at least entertain that. You're arguing in good faith. But if that's all you're using, okay, then Robert Ory's better than Michael Jordan.
Right.
Then Bill Russell is clearly better than Jordan. Like, let's have some nuance here. This is not an NBA show. I'm not getting into it. I'm not even going to argue that LeBron's better than Jordan or anything. That's not what I'm doing here. The point remains, though.
Stacking the key. Name of the show.
I love that. Stacking the paint. End of the day, that's the dumbest argument, saying losing in the first round is better.
I agree.
What the? I get so angry. It is not better.
I agree.
Losing the first round is not better than losing in the Super Bowl. It's like, God, people, can you walk and chew gum at the same time? Are your shoes Velcro? Actually, I like Velcro shoes, so I'm gonna retract that statement. Velcro shoes are nice. I don't like tying my shoes.
All right, I don't know if there's anything else to say about the game. It was what it was, and it was what it was at halftime. For the Chiefs to make it a game, they would have had a score on that the last drive. They got 2 minutes left in the half. If they would have scored on that drive, it could have been a little bit different, but they could not get it done.
No, they wanted to throw an interception to Zach Vaughn instead. It was great.
Yeah. All right, let's talk Super Bowl week. Sterling, we were there together. We were live on Radio Row for 4 straight days. Thoughts on Super Bowl week as a whole from New Orleans?
My voice still hurts.
Yeah.
No, it was awesome. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed New Orleans. New Orleans, stand up. I mean, what a phenomenal city to host a Super Bowl. Seriously, easy to walk to. Infrastructure's big enough to handle that many people. Great food everywhere you go. The people of all walks of life, so nice, so caring. It felt like they would go out of their way to talk to us and like make sure we're having a good time. And like it didn't matter. Like everyone, it was just great people. The only pushback, I hate the smell of weed just permeating throughout the city. It is like Vegas. I get it. It is what it is. I hate that. Like, especially like with kids around and all that stuff. It's my one like pushback is that. The city's always wet. It's always moist in New Orleans. It doesn't rain. Never rained once. Somehow always moist. Always wet. Like from the rooftops, I know they spray like the ground and stuff. It's weird. But honestly, I love New Orleans. It should be more often in the rotation of hosting Super Bowls. Had a great time. And again, the food was just food and people. Those two things right there, they were top tier.
And the casino.
I will say, Iain paid his bet off. Iain finally paid his stacking the box bet off. So credit to Iain for finally doing that. Took him almost until like the last night there to do it, but he finally did. Gave me a crisp $100 to use at the casino, and I promptly lost it on 4 straight hands of blackjack. So
it wasn't actually 4 straight.
Yeah, it was 4 straight. And so Iain,
of course, that's how that was going to go.
That $100,
we're just giving back to the city of New Orleans. That's what we're doing.
You know what it was, Iain? Just like you, it was a bad bet.
Yeah. Great point about the people. Every single person I spoke to from New Orleans, great. Every Uber driver, every cab driver, great people in New Orleans. I don't really appreciate the 28-3 posters and billboards. I told very few people I was a Falcons fan while I was there. That was on purpose. I will say I want to go back to New Orleans because I do feel, and Sterling, you've been to more Super Bowls than me, so I wonder if you can back this up. I felt like it didn't feel like I was in New Orleans. It felt like I was in Super Bowl City featuring New Orleans. Does that make any sense? Like it felt like the city just turned into a Super Bowl city with like a twist of New Orleans. I feel like you can't, if you want to really feel what New Orleans is like, I don't think you can go there in a Super Bowl week. And I think that's the same for any Super Bowl.
I went early enough in the week, and you didn't go out a ton with us early on in the week because you weren't there Sunday.
Right, and we were so busy anyways. We
went
out for dinner and that was it. And then
I just never slept though. I kept doing stuff. I walked. I went to Jackson Square. Went to Cafe Du Monde all the way down. I was walking miles and miles. I went to Sazerac House. I tried to explore as much as I could. I really fit a lot in. It was maybe that's why I'm run down.
You fit in more than I did, to be fair.
Well, every time I was like, I should nap. I was like, oh, screw it. I have an hour and a half. Let's go explore. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Vegas was kind of like that, but Vegas also was different too. I like New Orleans probably better than Vegas. I did. Yeah, man, I really like New Orleans. I do get what you're saying, but I feel like I still got a good chunk of New Orleans. I would have liked to go to the World War II Museum. That was probably the one thing that I really wish I did that I did not do. But overall, I hit on a lot of what I wanted. I went to a lot of great restaurants, a lot of the classics. Walked everywhere, and I didn't take hardly any pictures because I'm horrible at pictures. But yeah, man, I really, really was impressed with all the people in New Orleans, and they're just, yeah, I know I keep rambling here, but they deserve a lot of credit, and I actually probably think I did like this one better than Vegas.
Your point about everything being wet is correct. I don't know if it's always that humid there, but man, I had like an inch of sweat on me from the moment I stepped down in New Orleans to the moment I left. I've never been that sweaty for that long before in my life. I felt disgusting at the end of every single day. I'm sure I look disgusting. Every picture I'm shiny from the sweat on me. Oh, I'm not built for southern states, especially New Orleans, because it's so freaking humid there. It was like 95% humidity the entire week. I was disgusting.
Ian and I did go to the hotel bar a lot. Shout out to Ronnie from Norway. Great time with Ronnie from Norway. Great dude. Or was it Sweden? Norway. It was Norway. It was Norway. Great guy. Talking to the bar for a long time. I found myself talking to people at bars for a long time. Found myself chugging beers in front of cheerleaders on the way to the flight. I found myself in a lot of precarious situations. I'm a very farcical man. Like, I just find myself in random situations. I'm like, how did I get here? How did I get here? And it was fun. Found myself on a mechanical bull, right? That was fun. Oh, you were gone for that. I rode a mechanical bull first night there. We got a tomahawk steak to split for the table, and it came out and had a whole like EDM dance party around a steak. That was sure interesting. We tried Aaron Rodgers' drink. I think Ian only hallucinated just a little bit. Oh,
I didn't have one of those. Yeah, in ayahuasca.
You didn't have the ayahuasca. No, yeah, it was pretty good. I get why Aaron Rodgers drinks that. I almost choose that over football. Play for the Jets or drink that. I'm drinking that all day long, baby.
And just to be clear, it was not actually ayahuasca. It was a cocktail called ayahuasca.
It was a cocktail.
Sterling, you are gregarious for sure. Let's just quickly touch on Radio Row. Who was your favorite interview? We did over 100 interviews, I think.
I think it was 98. I think we just came up short. I think it was 98, Hunter said.
98 interviews. I counted. I was part of 40 of them. If you include the taped interviews, which are slowly being released on Stack in the Box YouTube channel, check those out. But I did 40 plus interviews, and that doesn't include opening night either. Sterling, who was your number one favorite interview that you did?
I had two, so I'll just go with two.
I have two too, so we can do two each.
I'll go number two. Number two, Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett was great. It was just after he had the trade request. You and I were on that together, right, Ian? That was a fun one. I thought Myles was really good. Gave us a lot more than I expected. I interviewed him last year as well, but he's a fun interview for a superstar like he is. A lot of times those guys are pretty reserved, don't give you a lot. I thought he gave us a good amount, and just talking about his life and how he's learning 3 languages, and he loves, going to Turkey and Japan and all of this stuff. I left with a really fun understanding and newfound appreciation of Myles Garrett. Any team that gets him, you're not just getting the phenomenal player, but I think you are getting a leader and a smart guy overall. I thought Myles Garrett was probably my second favorite interview we did. And by the way, again, as Iain pointed out, check out all the great interviews on Stacking the Box, as well as Arrowhead Addict, Joanne, Sean, Richard on the back, and Hunter. So much work went into this. I mean, so much work. Had such a great time, and I appreciate all they do. They were up grinding day and night, getting stuff pumped out there. So make sure you check out all the shorts, the videos, the lives if you want to go back and take the full lives.
And I will say the lives are, I believe, timestamped. So if you want to
Yes.
just watch a couple interviews from them, yeah, they're all timestamped.
Check out the timestamps. The opening night video I thought was absolutely incredible. Such great work was put into that, so make sure you check that out. That was a big Sean production. So just show those guys some love because a lot went into that. But number 2 for me was Myles.
Yeah, I think I can confidently say we had the hardest working team on Radio Row. I don't think there was any other tables that were live streaming from start to finish every single day, and then having the back end team cut everything up, and then the opening night stuff, and the side interviews, the taped interviews. We had a small team, a mighty team at Radio Row. Yeah. My number 2 interview, I would say, is Eric Dickerson. Legend, all-time great. I talked to him with Cody Williams, and I just really appreciate when all-time great football players don't just give an answer that's a very cookie cutter answer and just a couple sentences. He would tell stories, talking about with Deacon Jones. Could have talked to Eric Dickerson for hours. So it was great.
Deacon Jones is an all-timer. I just love my favorite quote from Deacon Jones. Have you ever heard him in have you heard Deacon Jones before?
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite lines, I think he's trying to be like PC but he goes, whenever you smack a man or woman upside the head, they have a tendency to stop. Because that was Deacon Jones' move, right? Was the head slap. And they banned it because of Deacon Jones. And that's just one of my all-time. Look it up sometime if you want to just be like, anytime you slap a man or woman upside the head, they have a tendency to stop. And I think he was trying to be like, women can play football too, and then
right,
and it came out way worse. And
it came out as bad as that.
It came out. I was like, okay. So anytime I think of Deacon Jones, I think of that with the head slap. So,
all right. Well, who was your number 1 interview?
Will Anderson, man. I love Will Anderson. Final interview of the day on Friday too. I'm so glad we did this. Will actually remembers me So I interviewed Will last year and remembered me. And then I interviewed him right before he was drafted on draft night in Kansas City. And I'm so glad I must have left an impression on Will because every time he sees me, he just comes up, gives me a big, good seeing you. Like, such a nice guy, Will Anderson. And I told him, I go, dude, when I interviewed you before you were drafted, I knew right away a team needs to trade up or at least draft him as the first defensive player. That guy is a leader. I didn't tell him my thoughts on Bryce Young. My thoughts almost changed. But Will Anderson is just such a good leader, such a phenomenal player, so jovial. He is very easy to, if you're a player, to rally behind. And I see why the Texans traded up to go with and pair him with C.J. Stroud. And just such a fun interview. I liked Will a lot. We talked about the whole ref situation, right? Remember how after the game, and I told him, I go, I think your quote was taken a little out of context because if you listen to the full Will Anderson interview, he doesn't blame the refs at all. He's basically saying whatever the refs do, you basically have to overcome it. But they clipped it to make it almost look like he was blaming the refs. And he was like, so we had a fun back and forth and just a great time. That was my favorite interview. So if anyone listening checks out that Will Anderson interview, I'd appreciate it because he gave so much. We talked so much about Kansas City and the Texans and how up and coming. And I just really, really liked that one. So shout out to Will Anderson.
My favorite one is the one I was looking forward to all week. He lived up to it, Doug Flutie.
Oh, yeah.
Who had to educate you on the CFL a little bit. And he seemed very excited to talk about CFL. Could have talked to him for a long time as well. Great answer when I asked him what Canadian football rule he'd like to bring to the American rule. I forgot about that one, the ability to kind of have an onside punt which you can't do with American rules. So, yeah, Doug Flutie was really fun.
He was a blast.
He lived up to it. Yeah, he was the best. CFL, greatest CFL player of all time, CFL legend. My first football memory was watching Doug Flutie back-to-back with the Argos, Grey Cups, 96, 97.
We went back with back-to-back with great CFL legends, Warren Moon and then Doug Flutie.
Yes, I wasn't on for Warren Moon. I missed Warren Moon. That was you and Patrick. I wish I would have liked to talk to him about CFL too.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, his story, man.
Yeah.
Also, Chiefs legend, Warren Moon.
There you go. So I think that's just about it. Any final thoughts about Super Bowl week as a whole, game, Radio Row, opening night, anything else? Oh, by the way, Sidney Brown become the 18th Canadian player to win a Super Bowl with the Eagles. So it was cool to talk to him on Monday night on opening night.
Malcolm did great yet again. Love seeing
shout
Wyatt
out Malcolm
there.
and Wyatt. Crushed
Wyatt, they were outstanding.
Yep.
Just so glad you came, Ian. Really glad to see you there. So much fun having another someone to help me out a little bit there so my voice doesn't quite get this bad, yet here we are still. Even though you bailed the last night, thanks, appreciate that. You and Patrick both bailed, just left me.
We're not the pros you are. We got taken out by actually we had kind of different things. It was more flu, mine is a chest cold. We both got taken out by the end of the week.
Yeah, someone had to do it, and so I just had to rally around it. And then shout out to again Joanne, Hunter, Sean, Richard, everyone
best
there.
Of the best.
It was a great time. Really, really enjoyed it. And thank you to everyone for watching and listening. Make sure you go check out everything on Stacking the Box and Arrowhead Addict. It was so much fun. Really, really enjoyed this week every single year. I hope you guys do as well. So appreciate everyone hanging out with us all year long. We're going to do a change up. So Stacking the Box off season. We're still going to be here. The normal Wednesday time. That will be the time once a week going forward this off season. Wednesdays, 4 p.m. Central. So make sure we will still be here giving you all NFL news all offseason long.
Yes, and then next year, Super Bowl 60 in San Francisco. That one's going to be a fun one. The Buffalo Bills against the Atlanta Falcons next year at the Super Bowl. That is going to be a fun one. Can't wait for that game. Hopefully I'll be in San Francisco for that one.
Get ready for Chiefs-Eagles yet again.
Oh, no. Run it back. The trilogy. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening and following along. As Sterling said, subscribe to Stack in the Box Wednesday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, moving forward. Not this week, though, since we did it this morning. Starting next week, Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern. The football season actually truly never ends. So we will be continuing to talk about it on a weekly basis. Thank you all so much for watching, listening. Enjoy your week. Santa Clara, 1 hour away from San Francisco. Tomato. It's San Francisco. But yes, Santa Clara. Sure. Talk to y'all next week, next Wednesday. Bye.